So my name is Esteban Gutierrez. This talk is called Security is Nurturance, and it's about metaphors, culture, and practice. If you excuse me, I'm kind of a little tired, and I've been running. I run staff registration for DEF CON, and so it's been a pretty busy last few days, last week for me. So I also am the director of information security for a company called New Relic. We do application performance monitoring and a lot of other, basically really good at counting things and make it easy for people to analyze that stuff. I've been with New Relic for about 2 years, and I run the information security team, which includes product security, corporate security, IT security, and it's a really great team. We work pretty closely with a lot of our folks in compliance, and physical security is actually a peer of ours as well, for our CSO, Sean Gordon. Before New Relic, I worked at Fortune 100 companies like Intel. I ran a security operations center for a DoD agency, and did some e-commerce stuff. Some of you might remember Webvan, which was a ginormous bomb, but blew through a lot of money, had a lot of infrastructure. It was really cool. It was quite a ride. So this talk is based on like the last 20 years of my career, really, and my experience with information security and changes that I think need to happen, not just in security, but also in the industry, the tech industry as a whole. In my experience, infosec as a whole isn't seen as an enabler or very connected to other teams or to the business. They're often described as obstacles, hard to work with, or dogmatic. And so, for me, I'm trying to bring the importance and value of connection to security, and then how to use that connection along with the skills and the knowledge and the tools and the values that we have to address the challenges that are present for our people, our customers, our business, and to really address the real things that matter, as opposed to installing a firewall because we need one, or putting in security controls for the sake of security controls. And it's much more about focusing on success. And hopefully using that connection to sustain a culture that helps people do the things that are important to them, right? And I think there's a huge need in information security to really focus on that more clearly or more centrally. And this is an approach that I work very hard to bring to New Relic, and it's one of the reasons why I came to work there. And one of the ways in which I think about that approach is using metaphors. Back to how things are done. So security departments typically practice a culture that can be described as information security as warfare. And I think this is the reason why so many security teams fail, or have a lot of problem with success, or have a lot of problem with enabling the success of the business. This culture results in something that's basically rigid, adversarial in nature, and unconnected. And so the metaphor that I'm trying to work for, or trying to build out, is information security as nurturance. I'm going to talk a little bit about the warfare metaphor and how it works against security practitioners, how the practices that embody information security as warfare keeps us from succeeding, and how we really need to maybe consider using different metaphors and different words and different practices to come up with information security as nurturance, and to do something that's more effective, I think, not just for the business, but also for the culture and the people, and I think the world in general. So this is something I strongly believe in, and it's something that we actually strongly believe in at New Relic. This is something we've talked a lot about in my company, and it's all the change we all want to see. So metaphors. Why are metaphors important? Before I came into information security, I actually have a linguistics degree. and it's a combined psychology and linguistics. And so I did a lot of work on cognitive linguistics, and some of that work involved how language, its structure and use, influence our conceptualization of the world. So you might have heard of a book by George Lakoff called Metaphors We Live By. He's written extensively over the last 25 years about metaphors and the influence they have on our everyday life. The book specifically explores how everyday language is filled with conceptual metaphors that we often don't even notice we're using. We can't avoid using metaphorical ideas in both our language and thinking. It's deeply ingrained. It's a deeply ingrained part of how we communicate. Conceptual metaphors help our understanding and experience of one idea or domain in terms of another. We not only borrow words from one domain and apply it to the other, we often bring the attitudes and ideals, and both positive and negative, along with it. And so metaphors frame how we think, communicate, learn, discover, understand ourselves and others. In short, the metaphors we use consciously and subconsciously drive culture and practices arising from that culture. So let's take so metaphors influence culture. Culture defines practice. And so let's take a look at something like the metaphor time is money, which I think everybody kind of always has in their back of their mind, especially in our culture. So we say a lot of things like, let's not waste time. I've invested a lot of time in this project. We spent a lot of time fixing these security bugs, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of language around that. We tend to value money, so we tend to be pretty stingy with our time. And then it has an impact on how we behave with respect to ideas like downtime, rest, self-care versus work. We all think about quality time with our loved ones. I actually have a hard time feeling good about downtime, and I think a lot of us in the industry find it hard to relax. We don't. Here we are working on a computer with our kind of giving our probably a stuffed dog. I can't really tell what's going on in that picture, but
that's a pretty good stuff.
Yeah, maybe it is real. And so, and even when we encourage people not to like spend a lot of time working, so we end up with a culture that prioritizes productivity and profit over self-care and rest. So with information security, the goal of information security is to protect an organization's systems, software, and data. But most of all, really, it's to protect the business and the people involved in the goals of the business, right? So it's a little bit of a shift away from these inanimate objects and more towards the human aspect of it. That's always been really key to me in my work. And so doing the work of information security is obviously very challenging. Business wants to move fast. Technology constantly evolves and changes, and now with like microservices and Kubernetes and Docker containers, it's going even faster. So the scale of speed of development leaves little time to check for every configuration file, access list, default password, and bit of insecure code. There's just a ton of work to do. In code and software age and gain what Ward Cunningham calls technical debt, which I think is a great metaphor, again. Some of this debt requires the necessary toil of security patching and reboots, which I think everybody hates. And so because of all the challenges in the work and all the issues, there's a lot of examples of how businesses and information security teams get it wrong. It's hard to do all that work. So, and I won't necessarily go into like the last few weeks of big security news issues that have happened. We get malware infections, we get data leaks, and we see breaches. And even though infosec teams try to educate, review, scan, monitor, and do all the work of risk management from the trenches, every day we watch defenses that get breached, and credentials are stolen, and business is compromised. And so I think it has a lot to do with this warfare thinking. It has a lot to do with how the industry thinks about information security. And it probably has a little to do with the fact that information security kind of came out of an infosec military, mil-spec culture, back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so on the one hand, it is sort of hard to disentangle the culture of information security. But I think information security has evolved into something much bigger and much more important to not just DoD or government people, but to the common everyday person. So, and I think that's another reason why this shift is really important. There's a lot of other, so I think that warfare thinking contributes to our inability to meet those challenges. There's a lot of other metaphors we can use for security, and in fact there's some really excellent research papers by some folks at NIST and I think Cindy and Labs and a few other places that actually did some think tank work on this. And they talk about things like security, information security is hygiene, or healthcare, or firefighting. But I think the information security as warfare is the dominant paradigm. So when we frame information security by borrowing the words of warfare, the attitudes and ideas that come with them create and perpetuate practices that make it even more challenging to meet the goal of protecting our systems and data and the business. And I think when it's framed using the warfare terminology and its goals are set up using that practice and culture, it's not something you can win, because warfare is a zero-sum game, and protecting the things that people love and value and their work and their activities and the day-to-day life, electronic life, is not a zero-sum game. Let's take a look at some of the words that we use in information security. Words like DMZ, bastion servers, defense in depth, intelligence streams, intrusion monitoring, denial of service attacks, kill chains, spyware, command and control, advanced persistent threats. We work on things like threat models. We do attack simulations. We secure the perimeter. We do red teaming versus blue teaming. Even casual reporting on information security reuses cyber warfare headlines. Many security vendors use the fear of losing a cyber war as a reason to give them lots of money. A culture of warfare is one of secrecy, adversaries, and drives a need for urgent action against enemies. Adversarial thinking leads to treating everyone like an adversary, like an enemy, or a potential enemy. And zero-sum thinking leads to security becoming a means to an end. It perpetuates the idea that security is not something everyone needs to practice, but a problem better left to cyber warriors and that can deploy expensive security controls and come out on top. There's a lot of, we can also look at that. I mean, it's evident everywhere, right? You walk through Black Hat or through any large vendor hall like RSA, or even you look at some of the ads that come out of, I think I hopefully removed the names of the companies from some of these, but these are ads that you're going to see online or in magazines, right? So we've got these like cyber warriors that are, you can hire our cyber warriors to help protect you. A lot of this became apparent to me when I heard a fellow security professional in a prior job exclaim, if only we didn't have to deal with these stupid users, we wouldn't have to put in so many security controls. And it's just like, wait, what? Then why are we here? It's not about our fun. I've also heard of people say, if only people didn't click on links, we'd be safe. And if we're setting ourselves up to fight against basic human curiosity, we're picking the losing side from the beginning. If we're focused entirely on blocking, intercepting, and negating behavior that is critical to so much of the work that people do today, we situate ourselves as obstacles, if not resources. And it's fair to say that clicking links is critical to much of the work that people do today. And not to mention, in infosec teams and trainings, I hear a lot of quotes from Sun Tzu's Art of War. I've seen at hacker conferences, we often see dudes dressed up in camos and tactical vests and other aspects of everyday carry. So it's another aspect of warfare culture. But this isn't the world I want to live in. I don't think we're going to make a big difference if we continue to do it this way. I'd rather take care of the people and things that they care about. And I think using a different metaphor, we can change the rules, we can change the culture, and change how we do our work. And by framing things with a focus on what's important, namely the activities that people value, right? Like the things people do to build a successful company, or do to have fun or do to thrive and to grow, right? This is why I think the metaphor information security as nurturance is important. And it's largely the reason why I came to work at New Relic, because the seeds of that were already there. You know, I'm a father of a 14-year-old. She's amazing. She's incredible. We're very close. I want to protect her, of course. But I don't think the best way for me to do this is to make war with the rest of the world. And, you know, despite some things I've heard from other people. I'd rather help her learn the skills and knowledge and confidence to grow in the safest way possible. And as any parent can tell you, this requires letting go of the need to win a lot of battles. Right? So to meet those goals, I need to be connected with her. So that when I leverage my experience and knowledge to provide guidance, I can speak to her interests and values and the things that she's interested in doing. And with that long-term goal of helping her to build healthy patterns of both independence and dependence, using these tools, she can practice responsibility and accountability as she grows up, which is kind of, I think, hopefully the goal of every parent. Right? So what is nurturance? There's a lot of definitions and writing about this. You know, there's your standard dictionary definition about the attention and nourishment and protection and guidance to maturity, and I think that's a pretty clear one. There's an excellent thread of work by a blogger and a writer named Nora Samrin, who wrote about nurturance culture in response to rape culture, and that actually has also fed a lot of these ideas. For me, a nurturance culture is a culture of connection, communication, mutual support, and care. And it's an active demonstration of being aware of what people want to do and what they want to accomplish. So be that my daughter, or an engineering team, or a customer. And it brings to focus, like I mentioned earlier, the things that's really important, you know, the things that people want to do and want to get done. So it's not the focus on the data itself or the systems or even the controls that we need to secure them, but it's the goals that people in an organization find valuable.